Coming up on the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break, where is Naj Ali Khan and who the heck is this guy? Plus, Edgar Zazueta on the road. We'll tell you where he's broadcasting from and why he's there. And a conversation with Charlie Hoffman that you will not want to miss. What does he have to think about his past year as president of ACSA and what's to come for the association? All of those questions we'll answer, and we'll answer some of yours. That coming up.
The ACSA Legislative Lunch Break starts now.
We welcome you.
Uh-oh. We already lost Michael. First day, we don't have Naj. Maybe this is Naj sabotaging things here. So I'm sure we're gonna get him back here momentarily. There you are.
How did that happen? Really?
It's Naj. We're gonna give Naj a hard
think Naj
time.
has something to do with this.
I think he's already, I think he has something to do with this. I think he's upset that we're doing the show without him. Is my guess.
It's the only explanation. Welcome to the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break alongside the Dr. Edgar Zazueta. I'm merely Michael Kelly. Not to worry, Naj Ali Khan not going anywhere. If anybody's going anywhere, I'm the one who's getting yanked off the air 5 seconds in. Wow, Naj is in Disneyland right now, and somehow has access to StreamYard to pull me off the air. Edgar, welcome. First day for you as ACSA Executive Director. Man, I know it's been a busy couple days for you. Tell us where you are and what the last 48 hours have been like.
Yeah, no. So I had to touch on this because I knew rumors were going to start right off the bat. You come in, Edgar's first day, Naj is not on. It was not my first decision. Naj is not fired. But I am good. I am taking issue that, he decided to take my first day on the job. He decided to take that day off. I don't know if I'm going to easily forget that. So, we have to give him, Naj does work hard. His daughter just did graduate from high school. His kids are off of school. Hey, we tell people they can take vacation. So we got to mean it here. First day of Naj. So we send Naj his best. I'm sure he can't help himself. I'm sure he's watching to see how, where we're at. And I wish that I could take credit for this office. It is a very nice office, but I'm not in the ACSA offices. This is not my new digs. I'm actually in the office of Grant Bennett, who's the superintendent of Paris Union High School District. And I think those that know a little bit of my story, this is where I came from. I'm a graduate of Paris High School. And so I've spent the last couple days visiting with our members. I was in a couple neighboring districts yesterday, Newview School District. My sister works there. I got to meet with the great superintendent, John Huber, from Newview. We went and visited some sites, got to see my sister's class. So I visited with her kindergarten class yesterday, which that was hilarious. They had a lot of interesting questions, as kindergarten kids do. And then today I've had an awesome day. Awesome day. Grant has been a superior tour guide. So shout out to Grant. Shout out to Joel Williams, who's helped out today to navigating the schedule, and a couple of great members. Our principals, Juan Santos from Paris High School and Erica Tejeda from Liberty High School. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But it's been great just getting some perspectives and meeting some members. So I thought it was nice on the first official day to kind of come back to my roots. My parents were really excited. I got to start the day with them. But it's been good to be home.
Hello to all of our viewers who are watching. Gary, Gail, Angela, Naj, watching from Disneyland. Are you on a ride watching, man? Please stop watching us. You can watch us later. I will say this, Edgar. I know he's your partner in crime, but you and I are not beginners in this. When we were doing some of the virtual conferences, you and I hosted some episodes of Ledge Lunch Break. So good to have the team back together again. We will have so much more to talk about in terms of your vision for the Association of California School Administrators, your story, who you are, the world premiere, if you will, of the Meet Edgar video, if you will. coming at the end of this broadcast. Trust me when I tell you, you will not want to miss this, if only so you can see great childhood pictures of Edgar.
I don't know how I feel about any of this, Michael. I just have to go on the record. I don't know how I signed up for this. I didn't know that this was part of the contract. You guys pulling up childhood pictures. But speaking of Grant, you can't see him back. Maybe they'll pop in their head. But I have probably the biggest live audience I've ever had here, actually doing the legislative lunch break. It looks like by himself, but we have actually an audience here on the other side of the camera. And I'm always nervous when some of my Paris folks are in here because they have access to the yearbooks here on the shelves, which is never goes well for me.
All I would say is you have a media team that is willing to go to the ends of the earth to find childhood photos of you, Edgar. So we are willing to do what it takes to make sure that the viewers are happy. A couple of headlines, and we start with the aftermath of Uvalde. It has been a week of sorrow, a week of mourning, and a week of searching for answers. And Edgar, you had an opportunity last week with Naj to reflect at the moment, at really, within the first 24 hours, as you've had time to step away a little bit. What are your thoughts? What are your reflections?
I mean, first of all, and just thank for everybody last week for hanging with us. I know we were all just trying to struggle, as everybody, as the field, as parents, as educators, everybody was trying to find the right words, find the right tone, find the right perspective. And I know, frankly, I think we were challenged to do so, even as we came together here on the show last week. But it actually was somewhat healing for me, like hearing the perspectives of folks struggling with those same feelings, people thinking about what does this mean in the school setting? What does this mean? A lot of the conversation about what does this mean from a policy standpoint for all of us here in California schools. And I think the biggest takeaway for me a week later, and I know it's only a week later, but I'm going to challenge all of us. And I know this is something that we're thinking about, Michael, and you part of your leadership here in Naj, thinking about how we could keep this conversation going, is fighting that urge to just very quickly move on, right? Because this is what the trend we've seen. One of these situations pops up. We all reflect on it for a few days. We're outraged. We're saddened. We have all of our emotions for a few days. But then life goes on, right? Unfortunately, in Uvalde, Texas, life doesn't go on. Right. There hasn't been a day where I haven't been drawn to the newspapers, to the news about seeing the stories of parents having to bury their children, about a community trying to struggle to figure out what happens next. Right. There's obviously these bigger conversations about police reaction, about gun policy, about school safety. This is a conversation at all the sites that I visited here this week about what folks are thinking about. Principals, school administrators, superintendents having to talk to their community about what their plans are, what safety measures they have in place. So I think to your question about what does this mean for ACSA, I think it's a commitment to not forget about it. It's a commitment to let's just not move on. And I think you're going to hear this from us. We're trying to think through, what can we bring forth to the forefront in terms of best practices. We've had a call from many of our members who, because their communities are asking, and we know there's different capacity around the state. There's a lot of new administrators around the state. So barring whether it be best practices on safety protocols, best practices on how do you talk to your teams, how do you talk to your students. So I think we're going to try to be a connector, if nothing else, to our members on drawing from all of the experience that we had within our membership.
And look, take it from a former TV journalist. We talk about 24 news cycles a lot. And to your point, Edgar, we have seen it time and time again, where you have all of these emotions and then you don't see action. And I think as we talk about the association moving forward, there is still sorrow. There is still grief. There is still pain. Every single night I sit down for dinner with my two boys, you're grateful, right? You are well aware of what the parents in Uvalde, Texas are dealing with right now. You may not understand it, but there is the realization that they don't have that privilege of having dinner with their kids. And yet, it shouldn't have to be that way. We hear all the time, imagine if this was your kid. Imagine if this was your grandkid. We shouldn't have to have that part of the conversation. We were talking about the loss of human life. It is as simple as that. Much more from ACSA coming in the months ahead. We have heard from all of you as viewers of this show, as administrators, the need to do more, and we are listening. We are listening, and we will have more on that for you.
No, and and to your point, Michael, we've appreciated that feedback.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
anytime says something, and this is, I mean, we're gonna, and we'll talk to Charlie about this, and I know our new incoming president had a lot of thoughts about this, that we're trying to be authoritative, we're trying to be aggressive on this front, and we know sometimes that's going to ruffle some feathers. You know, like we may not always get the tone right, but I think the one piece, we could have disagreements about what the policy solutions are, but I think there's unanimous perspective and appreciation that we need to do more. You know, that that it can't just be go back to normal, right? Unfortunately, we all feel like this is not the last time we're going to be in this situation, but hopefully it's the last time that we didn't do anything about it. So to your point, I think there's more to be said, but frankly, more to be done on this front.
And look, we talk about doing more. I want to bring up a comment from Amy Slavinsky, who says, I was outraged and then shifted my energy to increased levels of political action. I urge all retirees to do the same now that we have more time to do so. Donate, write to our senators, write letters, get on a texting team for a critical close blue or purple campaign. Amy couldn't have said it better myself. There is action to be done, and ACSA will be taking action in the months ahead. Edgar, it's been 2.5, nearly 3 weeks since the governor released his May budget revision. What are we learning as we kind of step a little further away from Governor Newsom's presser?
Yeah, this is an interesting time for schools and for us, all of us folks that are trying to build budgets, trying to plan for this next year. And I think we'll have a full recap as things come to fruition here in the next couple of weeks. But I think it's kind of the things that we were channeling a few weeks ago. There's a lot of resources there. I mean, the May revise showed that. We talked about the composite K-12 funding level. We talked about how we appreciated that the legislators, at least for now, did kind of resist the urge of throwing on a bunch of new programs there. That there is appreciation that like the system is being challenged by the things that have already been put on their plates. Universal meals, transitional kindergarten, expanded learning, you name it. This whole notion about almost every piece, every dollar that is given to schools comes with some kind of accountability in terms of a plan or a reporting requirement. So I think we're pushing on that front. I think there is some pieces that I think you're going to hear some more from us in the coming days as we see where things are landing, a little bit of perspective in terms of process, that right now the two houses in the legislature and the governor are trying to come to the same place on where are things going to be. The first place is that the two legislative houses will try to come to some agreement, and then ultimately with the governor. Here are a couple of areas that we're watching real closely. One is this whole notion of attendance relief. We've talked a lot about that. We have had Megan on the program talking about how we need even more flexibility, more grace than what was offered in the May revise, given how tumultuous the attendance front was this year, given what happened with the Omicron surge. And I think that's one piece that there's not universal agreement. We were happy to see in the May revise that some of our proposals made it in there. I think we may have to push a little bit harder to get the legislature to get over the hill on that one. So that's one issue. This issue of transportation is going to be something that I think folks are going to be talking about. Megan Baer on our team has been working real closely with the policymakers on this front, but we are expecting some proposals from the legislature that I think folks are going to give. I mean, we're so often the bearer of bad news. I think folks may be a little bit challenged in terms of what the legislature may propose, saying that there is going to be some requirements on transportation, that they're going to give us money, they're going to give the field money, but with that, there's going to be an expectation that kids are being served. A lot of unanswered questions, and there's still a negotiation. We don't know where the governor is going to be on this front. I think there's a lot to be said on this piece. There's also going to be conversations about ramp-up period, what's the formula, but I think here's a classic example where we're going to have to be on the lookout. Sometimes the policy ideas coming from Sacramento sound great on paper to the folks in Sacramento. When we get it to the folks that actually have to implement it, it's a different story. So I think this is where we may be calling on our folks in coming days to help us work through this, especially if there's things put out there that do become more challenging to the field.
And quick ACSA note for you. I am holding the ACSA Academy's catalog. Just arrived earlier today. The Academy is going to feature virtual, online, hybrid meeting formats. Seats are limited, so register early. You should have gotten an email if you're an ACSA member that went out around 12 o'clock today. You can complete preparations for your opening Academy weekend. So sign up, sign up, sign up. They are fantastic. The Educational Services Department does incredible work. And if you are an ACSA member, you know that all too well. So I cannot stress this enough. Go sign up for the academies and get registered.
Let me add a piece on that, Michael, because and I'm gonna quote Grant Bennett a lot because I spent the day here with him. But he actually, just a little while ago, we were talking about the academies. We were talking about professional development, and I think he had a actually great piece of advice to our members that when they're looking at our professional development, that don't think about it from the capacity you have right now, right? If you're a principal, okay, that you may go, and often this is one of our priorities, make sure that we have enough support, especially for site administrators. But also when you're looking at the academies, at potential professional development opportunities, think about it in the capacity you want to be in, right? So if you want to aspire through your progression in career, that those are some of the offerings that folks should be looking at. I know this is something we're going to try to highlight a lot more. They're very popular programs. We're not going to have to promote them very much because I know Mary Gomes, who runs this for us, every year they sell out. Every year we have waiting lists. So I know this is hot off the presses, but we would encourage folks to go and look at our offerings here for the next year.
If you were just joining us, Naj Al-Khan has not been fired. He is just on a much-needed vacation. Michael Kelly, the Dr. Edgar Zazueta, on this ACSA Legislative Lunch Break. He's just
we're gonna have to say that a couple times, right? I think people are gonna freak out. Not first day and Naj is not here. What happened?
They're like, where did he go? Edgar's first day as executive director, and he's making changes. No, he's not. Naj is not going anywhere, which is good news for everybody involved, because the last thing you want is to be stuck with this guy. Let's talk about first day for you, Edgar. This is a moment that ACSA staff have talked about for a very, very long time since the announcement was made, and we will bring in ACSA President Charlie Hoffman in a minute to kind of get his reflections on the nomination process and how all of this came to be. But what does it mean to you now that it's official to be the new executive director of the Association of California School Administrators?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd be lying to you if I said I had a lot of time here over the last couple of days to actually sit back and have it like sink in and reflect on it. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've been doing a lot of preparation. My calendar, my kids, my family can attest to this. I've been on the road quite a bit. Charlie can attest to this because I feel like we were on the same circuit there for a number of weeks. But I think the emotion that comes forth more than anything is humbling. I'm humbled by the opportunity. As I've been saying a lot over the last couple of weeks. It's not lost on me. Michael, you, myself, Gianna, Naj when he's here, we love ACSA. We love ACSA. We love this organization. But here's the reality. It doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the people that are watching this show. It belongs to Charlie. It belongs to the people here that are on the other side of the screen. It's their organization. So I think just the trust that's been entrusted, not just in Edgar, because and then this is not about Edgar. I'm up for the challenge. I know that it's my responsibility to lead this team, and I'm excited for the opportunity, but it's all of us collectively to keep this thing moving, to really expand on the lessons that I think we learned over the pandemic. Things like this show. I know we had fun with this, and it's been a great way to connect, but over and over again, we hear from our members how much they've appreciated things like the Legislative Lunch Break, opening up some of our meetings to all of our ACSA membership, really rethinking how we're doing professional development. So I think today it's been humbling. It's been exciting as I get to go on, some of these campuses as I really do this reflection. And it was by design, and it was my choice to be here in Paris on my first day. I look forward to getting back to Sacramento tonight, and I'm going to spend the day with the team tomorrow. One of our most valuable resources at ACSA is our staff. So I'm looking forward to really engaging in this conversation with them. But I think this piece about coming back home, I've told this story a couple times, but it's my parents that it's because of them that got in some of these opportunities. It's because the folks that I've been meeting with all day. It's the Grant Bennett's of the world. It's other folks, the teachers, the administrators that really supported me along the way. So it was good. I thought it was the best way to do that reflection, to come back home, to see the great work that's frankly being done in this community. And there's nothing more motivating. I know we always do this, and this is something I'm going to encourage actually our ACSA staff to do, that, you know, when we're all having a bad day and we're getting caught up with the nonsense of the politics of Sacramento or of other organizational challenges, you need to do nothing else but to spend a couple hours with our members, you know, and kind of walk it in their shoes. That gives us perspective of why we're doing the work that we're doing.
Well, Edgar, you talked about it a second ago, the importance of your parents, the importance of being back in Southern California in your community. And this is where you learned so much from teachers, from educators, but also grew into the man who you are today. And so on that note, let's meet Dr. Edgar Zazueta.
This work is personal. I mean, this work is very personal because I look at a lot of the kids that grew up down the street from me, that grew up in the same community, and I know they all didn't have the same opportunities. I was the oldest of two immigrant parents, both of my parents born in Mexico. They were super supportive of myself and my siblings in terms of trying to get us the best opportunities that we had. Like many kids, we didn't know what we didn't have, because the house was full of love. We never felt like we needed anything. My parents also didn't have the capacity to walk me through, or my siblings, through every little step of the process. So for example, they weren't gonna be able to sit over our shoulders and tell us whether our homework was right or not. For all the talk about public education, for all the narratives sometimes about how the system lets our kids down, I've come to realize that for my parents, the system didn't let them down. I got all the opportunities I've had today to this point because of my teachers, because of my educators, because of my administrators and school leaders. We really need to be unapologetic about advocating and pushing for the rights of kids, especially those that have been historically marginalized or historically underserved. There's the need across the spectrum, regardless of demographics. But when we're talking about equity, what are we doing specifically for those populations that we know need more support? It's not about me. I'm humbled to be in this opportunity, but I realize it's about those people that we're entrusted to serve, which are our educational leaders, which are our ACSA members. And ultimately, the folks that they're there to serve is the students. That's what it's really about. And I think that's the piece that motivates me and is going to continue to motivate me to do this work moving forward.
And so hopefully you've learned a little more about
I didn't know it was coming, Michael. Like, you always surprised me. I was like, yeah, I know you had the video and whatnot. And, you know, so, okay, in all seriousness, I have to give some credit here. People love this legislative lunch break. I think they love I mean, so much credit. Today, you get to be behind, you know, you're not behind the scenes, Michael, you're in front of the camera, but so much of what we put out, and I appreciate you putting that together. A little embarrassing on my end, right? This is something I'm still getting used to. But just you have a skill of just bringing these stories together. So just thank you. Just another example of the fabulous work you do on behalf of our members. So thank you for that.
Very kind of you. Let's tell some more stories, because there's nothing I enjoy doing more than that. ACSA President Charlie Hoffman is our guest today, who can perhaps shed a little light on how Dr. Edgar Zazueta got that role as ACSA Executive Director. Charlie, ACSA President for another month until July 1st. Charlie, good to have you. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon, man. Thanks for having me. I thought I'd been sent out to pasture when we enjoyed Aaron Simon's town hall last Thursday, but it was nice to be invited back on with you today.
Not quite yet, Charlie. Not quite yet. Boat rides will have to wait, if only for a little longer. Charlie, you and I have spoken about this off camera many, many times. I remember you and me sitting in the ACSA studio basement a few years back, and you were running unopposed for the ACSA VP role, and being the gracious man you are, said, look, I'm ready to serve this association, but I'm also willing to step back if need be. Charlie, if I told you back then that you would have the year that you did as ACSA president, and so much has changed as a result of the role that you played, what would you have told me?
Please recruit somebody else to do this job here. No, it's been an honor. You know, as I said at our last leadership assembly, where we have the blessing of going to work every day to do honorable work and to feel honored every time we greet a happy kindergartner or a heartbroken third grader, or go to a high school scholarship celebration, or this time of year graduations. But being in this role this year, especially with it having been the kind of pivotal year that it turned out to be, it's been a tremendous honor. And as Edgar said, humbling. And so appreciate the team that is the ACSA board, the ACSA officers, as well as the ACSA staff.
Hey, Charlie, thanks for jumping on. And I know we were having some text message exchanges, and Charlie was joking that whether we're going to shoot him up to the moon today, you know, put him out to pasture, but because we have some need for him here, you know, from time to time. So no, Charlie, in all seriousness, just thank you. Thank you for your leadership. I don't say this just because I got the job, you know, even if I didn't get the job, like just the challenges that you were presented with, steering this organization through a pivotal transition time. We're internally grateful for that. You and I have been in many different similar forums. You've spent the year talking to our administrators, talking about their challenges. Frankly, it's one of the parts of the job that I appreciate the most, just listening. So often we get asked to attend events to say something, you know, to give information. I think we get so much more from our members just hearing about that. But, you know, and yourself as a sitting administrator, as a sitting superintendent, can you summarize some of the themes, some of the challenges, or even maybe some of the opportunities? What are some of the big takeaways as you spent your year, you know, talking to our folks?
Well, our members appreciate ACSA. You know, many of the conversations that I had occasion to be involved with revolved around perceptions of ACSA and how folks see ACSA now and how they visualize or desire ACSA to be going into the future. And what I heard over and over again, region to region, conference to conference, was that ACSA has been revitalized in the last 7 years. And they don't want ACSA to go backwards, and they want ACSA to go forward. And the things that our members count on ACSA the most for: legislative advocacy, professional development, and networking. And what I heard over and over again is, when we look for our next executive director, we're pleased that we have more influence in Sacramento than we had, but we want more going forward. We want the organization to continue to modernize and utilize technology to communicate with one another as well as with the outside world. And I feel like we made progress on that this year. I feel great about it. It was a challenging year to be doing this work. As we heard Mark Ecker say many times, we're accustomed to politics being part of what we do in schools. But usually the politics has been education related. Can we let boys and girls be in class together? Can we let white kids and black kids go to school together? Can we teach creation? Do we have to teach evolution? Those are crazy arguments, but they're education related. And what was thrust upon us this year were equally crazy things, but not education related at all. And that made everyone's jobs harder this year. But people persevered, and people pulled together and relied on one another. And we seem to be coming back to a sense of normalcy and the normal levels of challenges, and ready to move forward, ready to utilize our influence that we feel like will only grow with our new executive director in place and ready to take on the challenges of things like you guys began the show talking about.
On that note, Charlie, I want you to take me into the boardroom, if you will, for a second. And this is going to get super awkward for Edgar, but I don't care. What is it about Edgar? What was it that made you say, he's our guy? What was it that ACSA staff already saw, that the board saw, that said he needs to be our next executive director?
Well, first off, we had a really qualified field of applicants.
Yeah.
We had, I think, 17 applicants. We chose to interview, I believe, 5. We narrowed the 5 to 2 finalists. We did a second interview with those finalists. And what it came down to was Edgar's credibility inside of Sacramento, Edgar's credibility with our members, the clear sense of the staff's belief and trust in Edgar, and the fact that Edgar is a California success story. Edgar is what we all go to work every day in our schools trying to help kids become. And we know that our system falls short of that for too many kids. And we dwell on that, as we should, because no kid should fall through the cracks. But we don't celebrate our successes enough. And in appointing Edgar, we're appointing someone who represents the best of California, the best of what we aspire for our kids. And I think that in itself is inspirational to all of us. And it's a reminder of the successes that we do have that we don't celebrate enough.
Charlie Hoffman, ACSA president. We won't take too much more of your time, Charlie, because we know that you'd rather not be talking to us. As you look at what's ahead, though, let's wrap here. As we look at what's ahead for the future of the association, what do you want to see?
My goodness, that way to just ask an open-ended question.
Super loaded. Yeah, you
guys eat 28 minutes before you let me on the air, and then you hit me with that as a closer. First off, I love being on the show with you guys. I love talking with you guys in person or in this format. I think we look forward to ACSA's next steps. I think what we heard so thoroughly, what I heard traveling around, was appreciation for ACSA and appreciation for where ACSA has gotten to over the last several years, and enthusiasm for where we are going. We have influence in Sacramento, and we have collaboration with other organizations. It was wonderful to be on the Washington, D.C. trip with the Coast to Coast trip, collaboration with CSBA. It was enjoyable to be at a dinner meeting welcoming the new Los Angeles Unified District Superintendent, Alberto Cavallo, with multiple other agency leadership representatives. I think I'm excited to see us continue to collaborate with other education administration associations like CALSA and CASA and CAPL. I'm excited for Erin Simon's unapologetic leadership. I'm inspired every time she speaks. I look forward to where we're going, and I'm appreciative of those who are stepping forward to handle the leadership role, including the two of you. So thanks for having me here today.
Appreciate that, Charlie.
Charlie, thanks very much for the time. Charlie Hoffman, ACSA president until July 1st. But please stick around. Don't be a stranger. It has been an absolute
Well, we'll go
pleasure.
find him. He can't hide too far there. So no, appreciate that.
We'll just pull him back in. Charlie Hoffman, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Edgar, Charlie talked about next steps moving forward, and something that you and I have had many a conversation with Naj, with Gianna, with other members of staff, with our members, has been the need to do more around mental health. How important is that to you moving forward as you take on this role as executive director?
Yeah, it's one of the priorities. It's one of the priorities that's being laid out in my transition plan. It's one of the priorities that we've been talking about. There's been so much attention for social emotional health of our students, rightly so, for our teachers. Frankly, my opinion, maybe one of the places that it's been not talked about enough is how it relates to our members. And it's one of the pieces that I think ACSA needs to play some special attention on. One of the pieces that's going to be one of my priorities here in the first 100 days is to try to get some perspectives, especially from site administrators, right? They took the bulk of the challenges over the COVID pandemic. Everybody's job was hard, no matter what role you had in the system. But I think you really think about it from a site administrator perspective. They were kind of the catch-all for everything, the good, the bad, mostly bad, the challenges. And I think that's taken a toll. We're worried. We're very worried about what this is going to mean, not just for ACSA in terms of membership. And of course, we're a membership organization and we want to increase our numbers. We're actually worried about what it's going to mean for the pipeline and leadership in our schools. Arguably, it's the most important position in our whole system. I think that the research dictates that. And I think the more folks are worn out and just said, look, I've had enough. I put in my time, but there's only so much of this I can take. You never meet a principal who's not exhausted, who's just running throughout the day. And I think it's just kind of like superintendency. I think principal, it can be a really lonely position. Just ask any of them, because you're out there. You're intended to make some of those decisions. You're supposed to withstand the challenges. So I think one of the pieces that we're trying to think about, what resources can we provide our folks, not just site administrators in general, but thinking about it from this mental health piece. I know it's something you and I have been talking about, Michael. I know something you feel very strongly about really promoting some of those resources, some of those experts that can think about it from the administrator angle. We're going to continue to put an emphasis on the children, on the students, rightly so. And obviously, as a leader, and we say it all the time, leadership matters. So every leader, from district leader, school site leader, they're all worried about their teams. Yeah. We need somebody to worry about them as well, right? We need somebody to worry about our folks as well. So we're going to be rolling out some pieces on that front, some resources. I think we're going to be using these mechanisms to put forth some experts on that end. So it's something I'm excited about. And it also goes to one of the other bigger priorities. If I could take one more second, that because we're worried about these pipeline issues, and I think this is where, again, we're concerned not just from a membership standpoint, but from a educational pipeline standpoint. There's been a lot of talk about how younger administrators, our younger folks in general, I don't think this just applies to ACSA, that our younger generation in some cases are less likely to get involved in organizations like ACSA or trade organizations. It's just it's a cultural generational piece that all organizations are facing. So I think one of our strategies, one of our priorities is to think about how can we attract some of those folks that are moving into these new positions. As we see, folks retire, that means that there's going to be a need to bring more folks in. So I think it's another place of emphasis. And how can we continue to make ACSA attractive for those folks? I think all of you that join us, all of you that are on this show, all the folks that are involved in our leadership, they can tell the story on why ACSA matters. I think it's us continuing to be those cheerleaders, those advocates, so folks coming into these new positions also see that same value.
Edgar, it is June 1st, and so we can officially announce on the mental health note, we are launching a 6-week live broadcast series. It'll be every Tuesday around lunchtime. First episode will air July 26th. This is something that you and I have been working on, that Naj and Gianna have been working on as well. A 6-week live broadcast series on mental health. Part of this is, as Edgar said, sharing the resources, sharing ways to help. But another part of this is sharing stories, so that as we talk about ACSA being a family, that you understand that you're not the only one going through this, that it is okay to not be okay. And so we will have policy experts. We will have topics on educator burnout. How do we help address that? Athletics. So much that we know that we want to discuss. And so if you have a story that you want to share, that you're comfortable with sharing, we would invite you to reach out. We put my email address up on the screen, mkelly@acsa.org. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Edgar, Naj, anyone who you are wanting to talk to. And if you're willing to share your story with us, we would certainly be honored and privileged if you're willing to do that. Also on a quick note, and we talked about mental health, the Every Student Succeeding series has been going on for 25 plus years now. And so many of those stories deal with mental health. And so that series will launch a week from today on June 9th, 19 region winners, and then the 2 adult education winners. Incredible stories. We'll have interviews with all of them in the months ahead. So a lot to look forward to. Edgar, as we wrap this up, first day on the job, come back to Sacramento. We can't wait to have you back. Man, as you're reflecting, how nice does it feel? How good does it feel to be in this chair now?
No, it's the trust is not lost on me. The accomplishment. I think we all face this challenge, right? When we're going to new things, it's like we continue to look to the next thing. So I am trying to take that moment just to reflect on what the journey has been. And there's so many people, there's so much gratitude for me, from our leaders, from family, to, folks that helped me along the way. But I think but right now I'm excited to get to work. I'm excited to let's do this. So it's definitely a team effort with you, Michael, with the rest of our ACSA team, but also with our members. So I would invite everybody to join us on the journey here.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. We're thrilled that you're able to be in Paris, which is exactly where you should be for today on this first day for so many reasons. But we're also thrilled to have you coming back to Sacramento. So get home safely, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, and thanks for filling. Do we bring Naj back, or should he be worried?
Absolutely, there is nothing for Naj to worry about. As I said at the beginning of the show, I am merely Michael Kelly. This is Naj's seat, and it will stay Naj's seat, and I cannot stress that enough.
He'll be happy to hear that. We love Naj. We'll be excited to have him.
I am happy to fill in if he needs to go to Disney World because he didn't get enough of his fill at Disneyland. But outside of that, this is Naj's seat. If you have liked this show and you like ACSA, might we suggest you subscribe on YouTube? We're over 2,500 followers now on YouTube. Let's get to 3,000 really fast. You can also like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you get your social media.
Plenty of ways for ACSA to keep you busy there, right?
Yeah, there's enough going on with ACSA that you'll find us. So YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that. On behalf of everyone here, alongside the Dr. Edgar Zazueta, I'm Michael Kelly. Naj Ali Khan will be back next week. We'll see you next time.